Now, it's no secret that over the last 7 years I have suffered from clinical depression, and today I wanted to share with you some of the feelings that I wrote down over a period of 7 years. Now, some of them I experience to this day, and maybe one or two I'm better with now, but I just wanted to share with you my feelings because a lot of people out there don't see depression as an actual illness rather than a state of mind you can just snap out of. And this is for the people who are friends or family with those kind of people who don't get what they need from that person, like love, support, blah blah blah, from depression. Now, more like anything else, depression is the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Nothing else I've ever experienced in my 20 years of life has ever come close to being as painful, miserable, what have you, as depression or mental illness has for me. Nothing even comes close to comparing. Not physical pain, not anything else. Depression, basically, the human mind is your whole world. That's what you see the world from. That's how you perceive everything. And when that's under attack, there are few things more painful than that, guys. I'm alone, or more specifically, I feel alone. Now, this is more painful than any of the other 6 more to go after this that I've listed, is my feelings of depression. Because humans are a naturally social species. And in my case with the autism, even minimal social engagements with others takes a lot of effort on my part. With depression, think of depression as a negative influencer in your mind. Think, if for comparison, like alcohol, how that can negatively affect the way you think. Depression also affects the chemicals in your brain and the way you're actually thinking. You're under its influence when you have it, basically, and a lot of times you don't even realize it. In my case, the most painful thing and one of the most common thing is I feel alone. Now, I have to say that is disputed on my part because I do have a few loving members of my family who I do care for very much and care for me. And I have a couple of people I do consider very good, if not best friends in my life. But that doesn't stop me from feeling alone. I don't know whether it's the depression, my autism, but one of the best things you can do for somebody with depression that you're friends or family with is just check in on them. Be like, hey, how are you feeling today? Blah, blah, blah. You have no idea how much that would mean to them to have somebody checking in. Now, I don't really have people that check in with my depression, but I feel like that's more them not understanding these feelings, which is why I'm making the video. It's in our human DNA to be social. That's one of the top things in humankind. And when you don't have that, you feel like you're less than other people. You feel like you're not important. And that's how I've felt for a lot of my depression. And even beyond that, when I was a kid, I was always a lonely kid because of the autism. Being alone is one of the worst things for depression. And you feel, especially when I'm at school or something like that, you see all these other people around you socializing, and I just sit there on my phone pretending to be doing something, pretending to be oblivious to all that, or talking to somebody, when for the most part I'm not really, and I'm just wishing I was part of that crowd. If I were to look back at everything I've done in my life, every academic thing, every social thing, everything I've done in my life, I would still feel like a failure. I always feel like a failure. Like nothing I've ever done in my life was ever good enough or better than anything, really. And that's a great, well, not great, but great example of a symptom of depression. Because when you're depressed, nothing is ever good enough. And I've had some major academic achievements. I took a specific test that they make all kids take in my state, and I scored the highest in the city I was in for the grade I was in. I took placement tests in 7th, 8th grade, and I scored college level comprehension on some things. I've had a girlfriend for almost 2 years. But even looking back at everything I've done, I've wrote a book of poetry in an entire summer. But looking back on everything I've done, I always still feel like a failure. And a lot of people with depression feel very similar, but, depression isn't seen by a lot as an actual illness, even though it is. Therefore, they don't get help. And you just keep feeling like a failure, and so on over time until you believe it. The feelings become actual beliefs. And I wanted to spread some light on this one. I know my nose is itchy. You don't need to, that's my knee. What I'm trying to say is, when you're depressed, you feel like a failure. And believe me, I especially do feel like a failure in my life. But what you have to remember on this one is it's never too late to change and feel like you've accomplished something. My advice on this one is to look back at your, quote, minimal accomplishments and, feel pride in the good things you've done in your life. You really hate myself, or I hate myself more than anything. Now, this is one of the ones I'm better with. Pretty much one of the only ones on this list I'm better with over time. Because right now I do like myself, but at some of my worst moments suffering from depression, believe me, I couldn't even stand to look. Sometimes I still can't stand to look at myself in the mirror. I cannot stand my own voice. I cannot stand what I am because I don't feel like people like me very much. And I know that's a silly thing I've been trying to work on and have been genuinely putting work on, but to hate yourself more than anything, just like feeling alone, is one of the worst feelings you can experience, because you're supposed to love yourself. You're supposed to think good things of yourself, but when you don't, and you go against that, you feel like there's something massively wrong with you, which, in my case with the depression, is what's wrong with me. Not that who I am as a person is bad or anything like that, but when you feel like this, it is incredibly, incredibly painful. When it comes to fighting or trying to escape my depression, I'm always running, but no matter where I run, no matter where I hide, there is nothing I can do to stop my depression, and I feel like a part of me, not me, a part of me, feels like I will never be able to escape the depression. 7 years is a long time to suffer from something like this. Now, there are people who've only suffered from actual depression for a few months, some a couple of years, or in my case, long term. But the optimist inside of me tries to tell myself that one day it'll be over. And a part of me, that same optimist part, does believe it. But this is not a good feeling. I'm always trying to run from the thoughts of depression. And a lot of people don't realize we'll get into it in the next one, how hard it is to actually fight against depression. Again, we'll get into it in the next one. I feel like I'm always running away from these negative thoughts, but they always catch up to me. I honestly feel, and, well, at least I'm smart enough to recognize there's no place I can run where these negative emotions can't find me, basically. And at the end of the day, running around constantly mentally, my mind moves very fast. That's a symptom of my autism. It is one of the most exhausting things in the world. And I'm always exhausted. And when I shut everything off and go to bed, I'm out very quickly. I need my sleep. Which, to be fair, getting a good night's sleep has been proven to be a very good weapon against depression. So, yeah. Depression is not a battle. It's not a fight. It's a literal war going on inside your head between the positive thoughts, or the good side of you, and the negative side of you with these negative emotions. Now, At some aspects, it feels like your very essence is dissolving into nothing when you're depressed. Not so much leading to a certain point most people would assume I'm trying to make, but more so till you get weaker, 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 and weaker. That's how a lot of the terrible things you often hear about in the news or going on occur. Because it's not an immediate drop. It is... God, how do I say this? It is an over time thing where your mind gets weaker and weaker and weaker with these negative thoughts. Because here's the thing. After loss after loss after loss, you start... Well, loss, I mean means something negative. Episodes, instances in your life where something bad goes wrong. And I call them losses. Loss after loss after loss, you feel very weak, and that feeling only gets weaker, and sometimes leads to unfortunate things. Now, am I claiming anything like that's going on at the moment? No, I'm fine at the moment. Well, more so. I'll get into how I'm feeling at the end of the video, but yeah, this is also one of the rather painful ones. Most of these are incredibly painful, don't get me wrong, but this one it's a very bad thing, basically. It is one of the worst on here. But it's very hard to fight against depression because over the time you've spent depressed, your mind has been made to think in that negative way. So when you're trying to fight it, you're basically going against the way your mind works. Now, the human mind is an incredible thing. It's so strong, but yet it's oh so fragile at the same time. It takes years and years to build up to something strong, what you want it to be. But it can take only a few minutes to be destroyed or sent down the wrong path, which leads to terrible things. I myself am no exception. I only recently learned this from, I think it was either my ex-girlfriend or a therapist who told me that in my 7 years of depression, well, long-term depression, your mind actually starts to think and work. The gears start to shift in a negative manner. So your brain thinks those become normal. So, for example, a negative has been conditioned by your brain to be seen as the normal, aka your default way of thinking. And the problem with that is, obviously, it becomes a lot harder and harder to fight those things when that's the way your mind works. But in order to successfully counteract the depression, you have to fight each and every negative thought with a positive one. And then back to an earlier point I made, dude, that can be incredibly exhausting, and it's very, very hard to do. Living with depression every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month takes unbelievable strength because you're basically fighting against the very the rules of your mind your brain has set, because it's basically you versus your mind that you're trying to reclaim for yourself. And to fight this continuously for months, days, weeks, or even in my case and others' case, years, takes a lot of strength to do. And that, at least the notion that I'm strong because I'm able to fight this, is very helpful for me. Where's my mental health at the moment? I still suffer from depression. That is very obvious. I do have bad days, but I have days that are also very good. I feel I'm in between. The worst of it is definitely behind me, but I feel like I still need to do a lot of work to get where I want to be mentally. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you for listening. And if any of this helped anybody, me sharing my struggles, how I feel, helped anybody, or even brought the conversation for mental illness up, it's a win. What's up, guys? Just one last thing, all right? By the way, this is my co-host, Tyson. He's a really good boy. And I wanted to say that if you are suffering from depression, please don't hide these feelings. Please get them out somewhere. It'll only help you. One of the worst things you can do when you're depressed is to stay silent. Have fun, guys.